Federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without authorization of the copyright holder. This infringement of copyright is called fair use, and is allowed for purposes of criticism, news, reporting, teaching, and parody. This means you. Let's look at some pop music culture history. Alvin and the Chipmunks was created by Ross Bagdasarian, known better by his stage name David Seville, for a novelty record in 1958 called Witch Doctor, which was a commercial success, being the man's first but certainly not his last hit. This was a great novelty hit at the time due to its gimmick that had Bagdasarian basically singing with a more high-pitched, sped-up version of himself. It was just so silly and cute at the time, it became a #1 hit early 1958. He figured while he was still in the conscience of the public that he had to do it again with a song called The Bird on My Head. And that wasn't as much as a hit, only barely scraping the top 40, but it's still a hit in the eyes at the time called the Top 100, now called Billboard. But that wasn't enough. This guy, like many artists at the time, wanted to stay relevant because I guess he got tired of Frankie Avalon, Ricky Nelson, Paul Anka, and Elvis Presley. So he devised a devious plan that required him to come up with 3 fictional characters by the name of Simon, Alvin, and Theodore, as they created the ever-so-disliked song by parents, the Chipmunks song. Christmas, Christmas time is near. And fun fact, that's not their only hit. They actually had a consecutive second hit called Alvin's Harmonica, which thankfully gets played nowhere and only ever peaked at #3 on Billboard. Unfortunately, though, that was not the end of what we know of now as Alvin and the Chipmunks. I wanna play my harmonica.
Now cut that out.
Yeah, the idea of talking chipmunks was so well received that they actually started appearing in comic books in Dell's 4-color comic series. Who would have thought chipmunks would have been such a popular choice for fictional characters? You know, despite the fact Disney basically did the same thing 15 years prior. No, Alvin and the Chipmunks were at the top of their game, getting their own animated series that lasted about a year before getting another in 1983 that lasted a solid 7 years before being cancelled in 1990. Afterwards, the Chipmunks were kind of in cartoon limbo for over a decade, only getting straight to DVD Halloween films I don't think anyone bothered to watch except maybe die-hard fans of the 80s cartoon, and a movie where they were puppets called Little Alvin and the Mini-Monks that was released straight to DVD in 2004. I don't want to know what crack they were on to create that idea either. But on the bright side for the Little Weasels, 2004 was when their name exploded, creating 3 movies where they starred alongside Jason Lee as Justin Long, Matthew Gray, Gubler, and Jesse McCartney, and was finally released starting in the year 2007, and going on to be the 50th highest grossing movie of 2008, which isn't that impressive until you realized I Am Legend was number 60, only 9 above The Tale of Despereaux, which I plan on reviewing in the future. Anyway, it was a commercial success within family films that it spawned 2 sequels, one called The Squeakquel and the other Chipwrecked, and soon to be a 4th called Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Road Chip, which should be coming out late December this year. However, that was not the only thing the Chipmunks spawned, as Nickelodeon got the rights to the Little Rats and created today's Target. The episode that I'm reviewing today comes as the second part of the first episode. I chose this one in particular because honestly, the first episode wasn't that bad. Then again, I'll take anything that psychologically torments an annoying singing chipmunk that has been reincarnated several times. We start with Dave looking for Alvin as they are going to school. Of course, Alvin doesn't want to, and after a little tassel, Alvin winds up going to school in a pile of Alvin dolls, which makes me wonder how self-aware Nickelodeon is about how much more marketing they allow for by picking this IP up. Anyway, they arrive at the school and then they meet the principal, which Alvin falls head over heels for. Yeah, we're doing this plot with the Chipmunks. Look, I accept furries as much as the next cartoon reviewer, who I should probably add is more than likely an old-timey cartoon dog trying to relive the old days, or is a brony trying to review every little My Little Pony episode as a Griffin and surprisingly never getting hit by copyright, to my knowledge. But I cannot get behind a chipmunk trying to be a teleophile to his principal. Trust me, it goes from love to full-blown lust. We'll touch on Alvin's unhealthy obsession with his principal later. And by later, of course, I mean now, as Alvin tries to become the teacher's assistant, principal's assistant, by trying to put the moves on her, of course, failing. After class, Alvin runs to the principal's office only to find the chipette Brittany is the principal's assistant. Now, I have to say something about the Chipettes. I like them less than I like the Chipmunks. I have this thing about characters who are designed as just female versions of male characters. Don't get me wrong, I don't mind them if they were changed a bit to be their own character. Look at, say, Toadette from the Mario series. While at first Toadette was just another Toad with a pink color scheme, but ever since her first appearance in Mario Kart Double Dash, they have since tried to add more to her character, being a hard-working woman in Dance Dance Revolution Mario Mix, and having some sass and spunk in Mario Party 8. So I respect Toadette in that regard. The Chipettes were literally designed as just female chipmunks. It was like that in 1983, it was like that to a lesser extent in 2007, and of course it's like that in 2015, again to a lesser extent. Maybe when these things get reincarnated an 8th time in 20 or so years, maybe they'll be tolerable. Anyway, Alvin figures the best way to see the principal is to make trouble, which starts up a montage of Alvin trying to hit on the principal, which lasts for a solid minute. He then sees Dave trying to talk to the principal about Alvin's issues, and Alvin gets jealous, becoming uberly obsessed. Alvin then tries to talk to the principal.
Brittany, did she get the flowers I sent her? No, it's inappropriate. She's the principal.
Acknowledging your issues do not make them go away. I can acknowledge the fact that I sound like I belong in this show, but that won't fix anything until I actually work my ass off to get me a lower pitch. Cut to Alvin in class, where he explains he didn't do a report and that he should go to the principal's office, when we learn that Alvin has gone there so many times he's actually banned from seeing the principal, which basically means he has no rules and can do whatever the hell he wants until he gets suspended. Though at this point, if the principal needs a restraining order from one of her students, he should be brought to another school or expelled. Dave sends Alvin off to his room to do homework before calling the principal, begging to let him come back to school. God damn it, Alvin! You're driving every authority figure insane. Your teacher, your principal, and now your own father. Not only that, but you're making me beg for an in too. Dave heads out to talk to the principal, and in jealousy, Alvin goes to follow. He's one step away from being Gasai. Anyway, Dave heads off to the restaurant to meet the principal, and Alvin falls into the soup, where we get a scene straight out of a rom-com. Then the principal husband comes in and basically breaks Alvin's chipmunkin heart. Unfortunately, that's not enough to kill him. What is with stations and trying to bring dead-eyed bees back to life unsuccessfully? They're never any good. At best, they're ignorable and pretty forgettable, and at worst, they're painstakingly stupid and shits on the good name that the original made for itself. And the fact that it happened to something that already lost its good name in the 80s doesn't make it any better. This episode is honestly a joke in itself. Not only is the premise of the episode awful, there's just no possible way to do it right. And to make matters worse, it comes after an episode that proves Nickelodeon actually still has good ideas. Alvin is insufferable in this episode, being an awful protagonist of a terrible story. I didn't like the idea of a teleophile when it was done in Brickleberry. Why would I like it in Alvin and the Chipmunks? More than likely, I'll come back to this show at a later date, probably just so I can see how often they'll play their #1 hit in the Christmas special, but as it stands right now, my thoughts of the show are at a very low. I'll see you guys next week for the start of Doodle's first annual Disney month, where I will review shows and maybe a movie that comes from Disney's animated department. So I'll see you guys next time. Take care.
Got it bad. I'm not the teacher.
If you would like to get caught up on future reviews, there's a link in the description below to a Facebook page. Basically, all that I'm going to tell you. I mean, you can follow it, you can get all the updates to future reviews if you care. If not, I'm not going to force you to do it. It's all up to you.